Oh, we are live. We
All
are
right.
live now. Hi, everyone. I'm Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage. My guest today is a former fitness model. He has appeared on many soaps: One Life to Live, Guiding Light, Days of Our Lives, General Hospital, which I've also appeared on for a little snippet. If you blink, you miss me. In 2020, he appeared in the Critics' Choice nominated show Betrayed, and in 2022, he was cast as a series regular on the Lifetime Movie Network show. Oh my God, what was the name of the show? Oh,
Keeping Up with the
what's,
Joneses.
yes, what was the name of the show?
Keeping Up with the Joneses.
Thank you, thank you. With Vivica A. Fox, Ted McGinley, and Michael Pere. He also just completed a pivotal role co-starring in the gritty new Netflix crime series Griselda, opposite of Sofia Vergara. And today I want to welcome Joe Finfera. Hi, Joe. How are
Hey,
you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Sorry, I made all these notes, and of course I forgot to put the name of the show.
No problem. No worries. I stumble upon because there's so many darn titles with everything. It's hard to keep track of everything. It's impossible, actually.
Yes. And
Absolutely.
how did you start in acting? Like, what made you decide to be an actor?
Well, I would say it would go back to my childhood because I'm from Baltimore, and my grandfather was an entertainer,
Mm.
and he was a singer too. So he went to a music school. I think he went to Peabody in Baltimore, and he played six different instruments. I grew up. It was just an amazing way to grow up. He played
Mm.
the piano. He played the guitar. He played the banjo. He played the fiddle. He played what did he play? The bass. He could
Mm.
play just about any instrument. And every weekend he would come to our house and we would sit around and sing these songs. And we would sing like tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree and all kinds of crazy things.
Right.
And and it was just a great way to grow up. And he also did he came out to California and he started acting on some things, like he did some things on Three Stooges. He would talk about Gene Autry, people like back
Mm.
then, and he would talk about
Right.
these things. And he so that's kind of where it all came about, was from my grandfather. And of course, what kid doesn't watch TV and want to be a part of this incredible thing that you're watching every day, all day? You know,
Right.
why wouldn't you want to be a part of it? And then you hear your grandfather talks that he was kind of a part of it out here in California, and this is back in Baltimore. So he kind of started off for me. That's where it kind of fell into my head, where I got the feeling where I wanted to do it.
Was the rest of your family supportive in that venture, or?
Absolutely. I grew up, my parents had five kids, and, I couldn't have, I mean, and when the email you sent me said you should shout out people. I mean, I think
Right.
the biggest shout outs would be my grandfather, because, he showed me a couple things, what he was doing. He showed me art and music and things like that. But he also showed me regret when you don't continue with something.
Mm.
So I'm living, I always see that look that my grandfather had of regret, and that propels me to action in my age now. But my family was very, very, always supportive. And they made all of their five kids feel like we could do anything. And,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, we always had their support.
Yeah, that's like always important to have, to have that support, because it's definitely, not an easy journey for most people. When did you come to LA, and how did that transpire? Like, did you have a role set up? Did you have an agent already?
Yeah. Well, okay. So it kind of goes back to the first part with my grandfather, because, you know, I didn't go to LA first. I think I was kind of a homeboy, and I didn't want to be away from my family, and or a mama's boy or whatever, a family oriented. I was just so afraid. I wasn't a homeboy. I was a mama's boy. I was just, and I, for me, I wanted to stay close to my family. I was afraid to go away to college. I actually stayed at home and went to college.
Mm.
I had this fear about being away. I don't know why, but I want to be as far away as possible. But but when I was younger, I feared that, so I went to New York instead. And my grandfather, and it just has to do with the L.A. My grandfather said, when I was younger, I went out to L.A. and I worked. I did some things on Three Stooges and things like that. And he said, I was very lonely, and he said, don't go to L.A. It's very hard to make friends there. And he said, don't go there unless you get a call. And I thought, okay, I'll wait for a call. And when someone does stuff like that to me, I really listen. I'm one of those guys that you tell me something, I listen. And if you tell me you're feeling sick, I start feeling sick too. So it's like that. It's that kind of thing. But I really believe in. I'm really believing to symbolism and there's a path and there's a direction, and listen to people, listen to your elders and things like that. But he said, go to LA until they call you. So but it didn't mean I can't. I did everything I could to get to LA. And I stayed in New York for about, I think it was close to 8 or 9 years waiting for a call. And that's a long time to wait.
Yeah, that's a long time to be waiting for something.
It is. I was waiting for this call. And I think I had one audition that was out there, but I got the audition out in New York, and there was a shot in LA. So I thought, okay, maybe I'm going to get something, and I didn't get anything. And then nothing happened, but I just kept doing all these things and living in New York. And it was New York is an interesting town as well. I mean,
right,
I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of theater in New York, off Broadway, where there's small, quaint theaters where they have 50 seats, 30 seats, and they can hear you, and you can what a great way to develop and form as an actor.
Right.
And I really, really enjoyed it. And I joined.
Yeah, well, theater is like, the show must always go on. So it's like, so when things go wrong, you just have to keep rolling with it. So I'm sure it's a good training ground for
it. Was from that perspective, you're absolutely right. Because when you're working on, and when you rehearse for a play, you're rehearsing for a couple months. And when it's like a couple hour long play, you're rehearsing for several months. And people say, how do you do it? Well, it's the same concept of a song. When you really like a song, you kind of know the words because it's got a flow, a rhythm, and it's the same thing with a play. And you can kind of pick up someplace. If somebody missed a line,
yes,
you pretty much know where you're going within that song, and you can pick up that way. And ironically, I started doing, when I was a kid, I did something, ginkgo biloba. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I started taking that because I thought I need to really be able to keep my brain open and remember all these lines. And so I started doing that, and it was amazing how clear all the lines were. And I could pick up anywhere. If someone did drop a line, we just kept on flowing, and it was great. And you just, again, you learn how to do that. And that's a great talent. And then, of course, learning how to be connected to the audience and making them, if things are funny, making them laugh. I really got good at doing things and finding ways that I knew the audience would laugh. And then that instant gratification where they laugh instantaneously. Oh my gosh, it's the best. I don't do drugs, but that's a great high. The high of laughter of an audience is amazing. So anyway, I'm gonna get back to your original question, but so my grandfather said, don't wait for them to call you. So I waited 9 years, and of course I did a lot of work, but then I get a call from a buddy of mine that I grew up with, and he was already out in California. He was working on a show, and his fiance had a show, and he gave me a call, and he said, Joe, and again, 9 years waiting for this.
Yes.
I get a call. He said, Joe, hey, it's a good time for you to come to California. I got a show. My fiance's got a show. Why don't you come out? And I said, okay, I'll be there. I put the phone down and I made arrangements. And within I think a week, I was in LA, and I never looked back.
And how did you meet that person?
We grew up together. There's a friend of mine that I grew up together. We lived in the same block. So I guess definitely influential on my life. And we played. I met this friend because I was 4 houses above him, and I wasn't allowed to go down past 1 or 2 houses until maybe I was like 4 or 5, or like 6 or 5 or 6. And so one day, I think I was like 5 or 6. I had this like wagon, and the gravity took me down the hill, and I got on my wagon and I went down this sidewalk, and all of a sudden I went down like 6 houses, and it was this young kid, these kids playing cowboys and Indians in the front yard. And then there they were. It's like, oh my gosh. It was like I was traveling to another world. And these kids were out playing, and they let me start playing with them. And they were playing, and because they didn't know who I was the bad guy. And it turned into a friendship that I still have today. And that's my daughter. And my daughter walked by.
And you have a dog?
And my dog's tail.
I can see your dog's tail.
My beautiful daughter. And so I met my buddy. I met him by taking an adventurous trip down the block, not knowing what I was going to find. I ended up finding lifelong friends that I still have today. And so ironically, he ended up going to California doing work, and he gave me this call, and he said, hey, it's a good time to come. And I came out to California, and I ended up working on they said, hey, we have some people we can introduce you to. And at that point, I had done theater, I had done I've done movies, I had done a couple of things on soaps, so it wasn't like I didn't have anything. And I was prime and ready to go, and it was time for me to make that move. And so I ended up having some meetings with some producers, and I ended up working on got some guest starring roles on a sitcom called Jessie on NBC. And it was wonderful. And I met with the producers, and that was great. And it was a great way to kind of start and get myself introduced to LA. And that's how it started. I waited for the call.
Okay. So when you got Jessie, that sort of like led to more work. That was sort of your first thing.
Yeah, it was kind of the first thing, and it was that show was for NBC, and they produced Friends as well. So the people that produced Jessie, they produced Friends, Jessie, and a show called Veronica's Closet with Christy Alley. And I think Veronica's Closet got canceled, and then it was just Jessie and Friends. And then so I made it on for the second season, but then it would have been a great third season for me, but it didn't last. Everything, I think all the finances went to Friends, and we know how that went pretty well. And so, yeah, I think even though you get that, you still have to fight and work for everything. Cause it's not where you just sit back and everybody's just wanting to knock at your door. Oh, we want that guy now. And it's just a very competitive industry, but now I would say competitive, meaning I think you have to work hard. You have to put yourself out there and get yourself together. And the way it is now compared to the way it was then, it's a million times different. And I do like how
let's go into a little bit. How is it different?
Well, I mean, obviously some things that happened recently is all like self-tapes. Back then back then when your manager or agent submitted you, you had to have all your headshots, resumes all together, and your manager would submit you, and then you'd have to mail in your pictures. And then back in the day for breakdown services and stuff, they'd have these like stamps. And then so the manager or they'd have a delivery person that would deliver all the people that were there submitting for the breakdowns for that particular day. And so it was a really intense moving of everything in LA. That's how it was back then. Now everything is digital. And of course, back then when you had an audition, you had to go all over God's creation, drive over everywhere, go everywhere, figure it all out. You had your Thomas guide, and it was just, it was a lot to go everywhere. And of course, fast forward to today, it's wonderful. I was reluctant. Well, actually, the first time I kind of left, I wouldn't say left the business, but I had kids, so I spent more time raising my kids and being a present father. And I did some stuff, but I didn't put the kind of effort that I'm putting in now. Now I'm like, oh, it's pedal.
It's your job. It's what you do.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a big difference. And so, but I tell you what, just as much as I love the entertainment industry, and that is a goal of mine, being a present father was just as much of a goal. So I'm glad that I didn't focus on it in those younger years of mine and this gap time, because to me, what this career does require so much effort and time that I wouldn't have been able to be there like I really was able to for my children. And so I don't regret that at all. And I'm so happy, because you can never get time back, and you can't get your kids the way they were then. And so I'm so grateful that I made that decision to really focus on being a father. And to me, the regret, again, my grandfather, the biggest influence of living a life of regretting things. And to me, I've always looked at things as like, I don't want to have that regret. I mean, there's times, obviously, we can get pissed off or angry at somebody, and we know maybe we react and we regret that, or somebody drives by and maybe, whatever, they're mad at you when you're driving, and you have that. Maybe I could have slowed down a little bit. Maybe I could have been a better driver. Maybe I should have irritated, all those things. So we have little regret, but never allow yourself big regret, and never have the regret to never have the regret of never saying I'm sorry and trying to make things work, that kind of thing. So anyway,
do you have an agent or a manager, and how did they help you, and how did that come about for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So good question. So the answer is yes. I have an agent and a manager. So I'm locked and loaded. I have an agent that does stuff in New York and LA for me. It's UAA. And then I have a manager, David Firestone, who I adore. I mean, I'm so happy to be able to say that, because looking for representation and looking for somebody that you get along with and click, and you have similar personalities, is fantastic. So I met my manager, David Firestone, actually at a screening for CAA. They invited me. We get invited to these screeners, and I go to these events to network. And so I figured, well, I've worked with people, but the thing is, you can have an agent, you can have a manager, but really the best agent and manager is also still yourself, because you have to be involved, because you can't, it's not fair to just sit back and say, I'm just going to let them handle all that, because they can't. That's you have to be involved in it. You have to push for everything. And then there's other independent projects that, quite frankly, they can't always submit you on, and you have to be ready to go. And you have to be proactive. You have to be proactive, and you have to network. And then once you network, you're constantly staying in touch with these people, sending them stuff, shooting them, hey, this is what I'm working on now, getting new footage, changing your demo reel and things like that. So, ironically, your manager can get you some things, but you can't rely on them for everything. You can rely on for this, but then you have to have other stuff as well, and just have a constant flow. And to me, I like to follow and listen to other people, what they did, or what's that ingredient that they had to be successful. And so I always listen to phrases or something they said, or a mindset, no matter what career it is, because whether you're a restaurateur, or whether you're a book writer, whether you're a singer, or whatever you are, there's an ingredient in there, and there's something, and it's just enough. And the ingredient I found is just this never ending push that you're not going to stop, and you're going to keep on propelling forward, and your feet are in the sand and they're locked, and you're just going to keep on going. And then you could hear negative stuff, but that's okay.
Yeah,
keep going, because there's going to be somebody may not like you and think there's something wrong with you, and everybody else may think you're right. So you never know. You never know where that's going to come. And then always try to improve on your craft, on yourself, on everything you possibly can, and then listen, and then take it, and then make changes and make things better. And if something's not working, change it fast, change it, always
what
change.
What do you mean by something not working?
Well, if you're, let's say, like one thing we're talking about is auditioning, and what's different between it was then and now. So now almost everything, there could be exceptions, is echo casting, where you're sending in, when you have an audition now, you send in your audition, and it's not where you go in anymore. And that was great. But the good thing about that is, I can get somewhere 6-7 auditions in a week. And being able to do it at your home at your own leisure is huge. So,
Right. And you can take more than one take, and like, you
can do more than one take.
Right.
You can do the best. You can, and then so what I mean by what things are, if it's not working, how do you fix it? Well, maybe you're auditioning a certain way. Like, for example, I was doing my auditions in my son. I have 2 kids. My son went off to college, so I have a spare room. I was using his room as my audition room. And I wasn't really booking anything in that room. And I thought, well, maybe. And so now I'm in my office now. I figured I started, and my son came back from college or for just a little bit. So I had to do all my auditions in my office where I am now. And I have my backdrop. I have all my things and my lighting and all this other stuff, because whatever you're going to do, the other ingredient is you got to do the best. You got to do everything. Can't be, you can't have any loose ends. You got to dot your T's, cross your I's. You got to do it right, because when you're in the big leagues, you're
competing. Everyone else is going to be professional,
right?
And that's what you're competing with.
So. Absolutely. And to me, I mean, I still like to think I'm competing with myself to bring out.
Well, I agree with you, but I understand what you're saying.
But you're in a point where you have to make sure it's got to be right. So you got to get the best backdrop, the best lighting, the best cameras, the most up-to-date cameras, the most up-to-date computer. Not saying just, you have to make sure that you have all the proper tools to do your job, because the smallest thing that's annoying to a casting person could just make them take them off of you and then skip to the next person. They're looking at so many things that can get annoyed. I mean, think about it, And so, I mean,
everyone has their little quirks, little annoyances that bother them. So I don't like that lighting, or I don't like that angle. So yes,
I try to hear all those things when I'm doing something. So if I think something's that way, I try to fix it all, because I want to make sure that I'm not annoying anybody. But you never know. You still may annoy somebody.
Well, yes. But you want to do the best job you can, do the best. And then if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But, that's a thing. Like, I was always, when I was auditioning regularly, if I screw something up, I'm fine with it. But if I was given the wrong information by my agent or something, and then I would be annoyed. But if I did the best I could do with what I had, then I was fine. It didn't work out. Fine. Next, let's move on. So yes.
Right. And so I started doing when my son was around, I started doing my auditions in my office, and I have a little bit of natural light coming in. My things are a little bit different. Everything was kind of a little bit different. And then it just I was booking all these things, and things kind of come in pairs and twos.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to stay where I am. My son's room is going to stay his room even though he's out of the house for a while now. He's almost 21. So he's away wherever. So he comes back periodically, but I do everything in my office. I just reset everything up, and because that seemed to work. The other thing would be, I used to have family members read for me, because you always have to have a reader.
Right.
And it just got to the point where people started dodging my calls, and my family don't want to answer my phone anymore because Joe wants me to read. And I thought, and so I started looking, how does everybody do this? There's got to be a way to solve this problem. And then I found online, there was this group on Facebook online that people would they'd help each other out. And I thought, well, that's good, but I mean, it's not fair, because I have all these auditions. I can't. You still have to make appointments and stuff.
Yeah, you still rely. It's a lot of work. Yeah,
you got to rely on all these people. Then they're going to want you to do it. And I thought, oh, I can't do that because I'm so busy with my own stuff. So then I found out about a service called We Audition. Woo!
Sorry, what's it called?
We Audition. And it's called We Audition. And then it's the epiphany of everything, because they're like the Uber driver of actors. These are a bunch of actors that will help you, and they'll read the other person's lines. They're readers, and it's incredible, and it's changed my life. And as an actor, it's changed my life, because I can go online, and it's called We Audition, and you have actors all over the world So
Oh,
you can
wow.
go online at 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night, and go, I got to get this audition in. And you can go online and and you can go through all the actors there. You can look at their demos and see what they sound like and have a good idea what kind of acting they are. And it's incredible. So, and then when you're auditioning with other actors, they will give you some good stuff because
Energy,
acting is
yes.
sometimes in between the lines. And
Yeah.
it's not about your lines. It's about you being
Listening.
the character and
Yeah.
listening
Yeah.
and your reaction in between and where
Mhm.
it flows and stuff. So that's changed my life is having the resource of other actors. And actors can make good money being readers on We Audition. And so
Okay.
I walk around praising it. Now
Well, I
it
always wondered that because it's been, it's been a while. I haven't been pursuing acting. Like if people call me, then fine, I'll do something, but I'm not actively pursuing it.
yeah.
And so I always wondered, like, things have changed so much. And yeah, I always wondered how you do the reader thing online
It's
now.
an
So,
expense, but back in the day, we'd have to drive everywhere. So there's no
right.
driving. I made sure I got a newer computer because everything, whatever you do now, it's all online, all the stuff is
Right.
electronics. So you have to have update everything. And so it's and God forbid if someone calls me to read, I'm like, do not call me to read. I'm not a reader. I can't do it. It's because it's so intense. But I tell them call We Audition. That's what you got to do. And it literally has changed my acting, and it's an expense, but it's an expense that I'm glad I can use. And obviously when you do
Well,
your
yeah, I'm sure it's a tax write-off, right? Like at
it
the end of
sure is.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I can pull up how much I spend. I spend a good amount for readers, but it's worth it because it's translated to me booking things.
Right.
And then I got actually another story where I booked something, and you always hear back in the day, they always say, if you end up auditioning or reading for a show and it's already on the air, watch it and understand the rhythm of the show, know who all the characters are, and so
Mhm.
ironically, the TV show I booked the recurring role on, Keeping Up with the Joneses, I was only up for one episode,
Mm,
and I was so excited. I
mm.
guess the first AD called me and called me about everything. I'm like, who's in the show? Who am I working with? He said, oh, your scene's going to be with Ted McGinley. I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I know him. He's great. And so I did some research and I figured out what show it was because a lot of times they don't want to tell you what show it is. And so I
Okay.
did research and I looked up the show and I watched every episode of the first season. So I knew who all the characters were. I knew what was going on. I had
Mm.
judgment. I knew the rhythm of the show. And then so when I went in to work on my episode, they really loved what I did because it felt like, I knew who they all, I had this prejudgment who they were. I was ready
Right,
to
right,
go.
right. You
I
knew how
felt
to act. You did the homework. Yeah.
I did all my homework. And you know what happened?
Mm.
They called me a week later and they wrote me into the whole show. And
Wow.
what a gift when you're in your 50s and you've been doing this for a long time and you're like, wow. And it just shows you that nothing takes the place of doing your homework and hard work.
Right.
And so to get that kind of call, and it's Vivica A. Fox's show. It's like, how could you not respect such an amazing actress,
Mhm.
business person? She's such a hard worker, and it's just an honor for me to be on her show and
Right.
work with these other talented people. And so I felt it was just so great. And because of that, it translated into other roles, into other TV shows and other films, because they say work begots work. And once you
Right.
start making kind of a name for yourself and you meet these people, you have relationships. And you'll see it in movies you've watched over the years. You'll see like Penny Marshall would constantly use the same people because she knew
Right.
what they could do. It saves them time
Yeah,
for
they already know who you are. They know what your range is. They know where you'll fit. It just makes the whole process so much easier for them,
right.
because I
And
know, yeah, like I've been cast, some directors cast me a couple times because something else happened and they need someone last minute and they would call me because they knew what I was like. They knew I was professional. I'd be on time.
Right.
know my lines, yeah, exactly.
And you have a good attitude, things like
Yes.
that. And that's important as well, because, I think when you're working on any set too, it's money, time, it's
Mm.
fast pace, and there's no room for an ego from anybody,
Right.
because everybody's replaceable. Well, I mean, there are certain limits, but for the most part, we're all kind of replaceable. And so, you realize that it's like you just got to be on your best behavior, and it's like, and if you're stepping onto something, they all are a family. So you have to
Right.
make sure that you gel with every family member there and keep yourself happy, and you're a good person, you're nice, you're friendly, hard, do your work.
Yeah, they
And
don't want a dysfunctional family. They want a healthy.
no, do not come in. And that means with every part, because everybody's connected and you just don't know. And they're all a family. And so when you're in something that's already, you got to keep that in mind. Go there and you have to make sure that you're friendly, you're good to work with. Don't go overboard and get on everybody's nerves, but just do your job, be
Yeah, just be
friendly,
professional,
be
polite.
professional. Yeah. And sometimes people are doing stuff and they can get a little short. You don't need to get short. You just be happy and say, what do you need me to do? I'm here. And you just do that, because it's when it comes to these types of shows, it's time and money and speed. It's like everything's got to go, because if it's not, there's big problems. So you don't want to be a cause of any of that. So, but a lot of it's different. And again, back to your question, is when things aren't working, how can you make it work? How can you start making a difference? If you're not getting the result, change it up, figure out different things you can do to change it up. And don't stay
Speaking
stagnant.
of some of the shows you've been on, so you're on the new crime series Griselda, opposite of Sofia Vergara. How did that opportunity transpire for you?
Okay, so now the show hasn't aired yet. So I gotta be careful.
You can't say too much. Yes.
But I can say stuff, because I know, whatever's on IMDb and whatever's been on
whatever's on the internet.
It's already there. So I auditioned. I play the part of a lawyer, and I'm in the second episode. I play kind of a pivotal character in the show, where I give this aha moment. And so it was through my manager. My manager, got me the audition. And honestly, I met my manager from going to an event and networking. And we, I was like, hey, when we talked and we networked and we gelled and we meshed, and he's, we just got along, and he works really hard, and I work hard. We work hard together. And he, he gave me things like, hey, when you do an audition, do 3 takes. So for that particular show, I did 3 takes of this character, and they were all uniquely different. And I ended up getting a call from the producer saying, hey, we loved your tape. And I ended up going on doing the read through and working on the show. I ended up doing 4 days on it. And it'll be on Netflix. It is starring Sofia Vergara, and she's an amazing actor, business person. She's such a hard worker. And we did the read through. We read through 2 episodes. I'm only in the second episode. But reading through it and just watching how hard she worked and it was, and the show is, it's actually the producers of Narcos.
Narcos. Okay.
And I'm thinking it could be really huge. So I'm hoping for that. But watching all these guys, to be a part of that family was wonderful. And they listed the show on Wikipedia, and they listed the top, I guess, 10 people, and they put me on there. So I was happy.
That's awesome.
Listing on Wikipedia, and I know it's great. So I'm really looking forward to that show. And again, it's sure to be something I think everybody's going to watch. I think it's going to, I think it'll help Netflix. I think Sophia did an amazing job, and I'm thinking she could get a nod for an Emmy down the road. That's just,
wow, that's
right there.
Awesome.
I think so, because it's a very relevant show. It's a true story. And And by everybody that's involved in it, it's such a great group, and to be involved in it is
That's
it's
great.
life-changing for me, and it was a complete honor. And just to watch, and you sit and you watch. What's fun is you're watching, like I watch Modern Family, I watch America's Got Talent, and you're sitting there watching this stuff, and it's kind of like, it's not really reality, but then all of a sudden it becomes part of your reality. It's very strange when you're people that you watch all the time, and and it's like you hear of delusional people, but then it's like, wait a minute, now all of a sudden I'm working with somebody that I watch all the time. So it's like, how far, so the reality and not reality, but it was real, and I was really there, and but I tell you one thing I always tell, let's say, other actors and everybody else: nothing is real until it airs. Nothing.
Oh yes, I know this.
Nothing happened until it airs. I'm pretty darn sure this is going to air, and I know my part's going to air because it's a pivotal character. And so, but I can say this: whenever you're doing anything, nothing. Well, I always talk about this is the saying, if a tree falls in a forest and no one's there to see it, does it make a sound? And the answer is, if no one's there to see it, it does not make a sound. It never happened until somebody witnesses it. So until a show airs and somebody sees it, then it happened. Then it made a sound. And that's how I view the career. And so, because you could say, well, I just started opposite of whoever.
Right. But if no one sees it and no one knows about it,
it never happened. Then you think of some of these actors that work on a show and it may not air for 5 years. And it's like, they're like amazing. And they're like, and and once it airs, it's going to change someone's life, but no one knows about it yet. And then when it airs, it's like 4 or 5 years later. And it's like, wow. And then they take off, and it's like, it could have been sooner. But sometimes projects take a little bit longer because of many reasons, funding or this or that, or contractual things, who knows. But I'm honored to be a part of this, my first Netflix thing. So I got to tell you, I always spout out things I want to achieve to the universe. Your word is your
okay. So you're into like visualization or meditation or
everything. The power of positivity. I'm into all that. So any of the self-help motivational books, anybody like that's inspiring. I believe that there's more, that we are all a form of energy, and that we give off energy, and we should keep energy good. I believe in the giving and it coming back. I think our universe was created with fundamental laws that we have to give, we have to return. And then if you are so close-minded and so rigid, you are cutting yourself off to everything. And if you come from a bad place, you're stopping everything, and you're going to bring more bad stuff to you. So I think it's important for all of us to do a check and be happy to help others, to donate, to give. If we're going to have bad days, but get yourself back into a feeling of well-being and of appreciation and of love, because if you don't, you're cutting yourself off. And so I am so involved in that. But I always throw out, what do I want to achieve? And it was like, I would say, I want to get a recurring role on the show. It happened. I want to be on Netflix. It happened. So I got other things I'm pushing for too. And I'll put things up. I have things I look at.
I understand. You put notes up and stuff.
Notes, pictures, whatever it is.
You have a visualization board, whatever it takes.
All that stuff. I've written stuff out. Literally, when I got that call I was talking to you about, I remember writing something out, because I hired a coach, and the coach had me write things out, what I wanted. And literally, I wrote it out, and it came true, and it really happened. And so exactly the show I worked on, everything came true, and I wrote it out. So it's interesting how these things can really happen. They're powerful, but our existence is, and it's not to be crazy, but our existence is already crazy. Just the fact that we exist is crazy. But why wouldn't a person who created us have fundamental laws to that would make life better for us if
Right.
you're better to others.
Right.
And so I'm truly part of that and believe in that completely. And again, I'm not perfect, because there's days I have bad days where I get irritated and I get mad at people, but then I got to return to love and forgiveness and happiness and things like
Right.
that, and try to.
Yeah. What's your best piece of advice what's the best piece of sage advice you were ever given?
Decorate your prison. So a buddy of mine said, decorate your prison. And so I listen to everything, and I think about, what does that mean? How can I apply that? And so it applies to almost everything, because, in life we're not born with, well, some people could be born with everything, and they could lose it too. But a lot of times we're fighting to gain things or create things in our life, and then nobody's born with a big paycheck or whatever. Well, again, some people are, but for the most part, sometimes we go through life and we're not where we want to be at. You're living in a 1-bedroom apartment. You don't have the best place in the world. You don't have the best job you want in the world. You don't have exactly what you want in the world. So, and so when you hear the word decorate, or the phrase decorate your prison, wherever you are, and I've added to it, wherever you are, find the beauty in it and make it the best place it is. When I lived in New York City, I lived in an 8x10 apartment. It was as small as a jail cell. It was literally a jail. Not really, but it was. It was the size of it.
Right. It was small.
And I didn't have a kitchen. I had a refrigerator that was, you can't see, it was maybe 3 foot high. I had a microwave and a hot plate. I had to wash my dishes in my bathroom sink. It was like I lived like that in this things, but I made it where it was my mansion. I made it as best as possible. I got a fold-out couch. I had shelving units all around. I utilized it, and I made it my castle, and I decorated it so it was the best thing, where I felt like I was not lacking. I felt like I had everything. And so whatever you have, because if you are walking around life feeling lack and negative, I think you almost close things off, and you're not allowing things to come in. And you could see it as an energy thing, or you could also see it as when you meet people, you're like, oh yeah, things are horrible, things are bad. You know what I mean? And who wants to talk to a guy? I would talk to somebody like that. But if you go to somebody and say, oh, things are great, I'm doing great. I couldn't be happier. I feel blessed. I'm really happy to where I am, and nice to meet you. And you have an internal light that makes people just become attracted to your soul, your light. And so decorate yourself, who you are, and be appreciative of everything you have. Look at what you have and not what you don't have, and build off of it like a strong foundation of a house. And so when you decorate everything and you make it, and you're appreciative of everything, more comes to you. Decorate what you have, make it as good as you can, and then you'll be surprised. Because I know in my life, when I came from a place of lack, I just closed off everything, and it went the opposite direction. It was more taking away instead of more coming.
I understand. What would your biggest advice to someone wanting to move to LA be?
Well, I think anything can happen. And I honestly, I do talk to a lot of the younger generation, 20s, 30s, because I know what it feels like. And I'm very empathetic, and I feel for anybody who wants to do what I did. I want to give them the sage advice
Exactly.
of what to do. So, again, what works for one, one thing I will say, what works for one may not work for others.
Right, exactly. Everyone has their own path and destination and all those things.
Right.
Yes.
And you don't know where lightning could strike. So be ready for any possibility. Be ready for any possibility, and is what I would say. But, in the meantime, work on finding some type of stability, and making yourself feel okay, and being okay with where you are, and have that, so that way you're feeling comfortable with where you are. I do know when you first kind of come to LA, I find that people end up having this weird luck because they have no inhibitions. They truly believe anything is possible, because it is, because we have to return to that. But when you first come out here, you really believe anything's possible. And
Right.
the reality is it really is. But then life jades us a little bit, and then we got to fix that. And we gotta go back to that thinking again, because we can do anything. We just can't let our inhibitions stop us. So I would say to anybody first coming to LA, what should you do is find a way to be okay and have stability, flexibility, and mental stability, financial stability, and flexibility, and be happy, and try to find a way to be happy and enjoy your life, enjoy the journey. My father used to always say, enjoy the journey. It's a little hard when you're younger. I tell you right now, because I'm 54, I have no choice. I darn sight better enjoy the journey, or I'm in trouble. Because I've had to work hard to get everything I have, to be able to buy a house, to be able to, raise kids and everything. So I have to enjoy the journey. So when you're younger, I would say, well, I'll enjoy everything when this happens and this happens, this happens. And it's like, so I would say, try to find ways to truly enjoy the journey, be happy with where you are, and work on building stability for tomorrow, and work on maybe saving money, and make connections, but truly don't live your life, I'll be happy when this happens, because that's really not the answer. Because even if you do get a role, it may not necessarily change your life. Then you have to go to the next one, And the reality is, and the other thing too is, I would say is, maybe listen to this podcast, but never allow yourself to get too high about whatever job you get, because that's as far, you have to go down that far too, and never allow
just
yourself
be humble. Just be humble.
Be humble, and keep yourself even centered, because you're going to get these great opportunities, and then there's going to be time where you may get nothing, and then you could get depressed. So to find a way to keep a stability, a mental stability, and the mental stability is not going too crazy. It's okay to get excited, but return back to normalcy, and because if you don't, it's very dangerous for people, because it is hard when you put yourself on such a high pedestal, and it's just all the further you have to go down when you're waiting for the next thing. And so, keep a level mental attitude. And the other thing I would say is, we all think about this, is you are enough. We all are enough. And for whatever it is you want to do, if you just work really hard and really do what it takes, anything's possible, and you are enough. And the reason I like to say that is because I think we all go through thinking, are we enough? Am I enough? Do I deserve this job here? Do I deserve to have this? Oh my God, I just booked this. You are enough. And it's amazing that even the most talented people can think that they're not enough. So to me, when I say that, the thing that pops in my mind is the most amazing singer in the world, Whitney Houston. And she did, when she did the movie
Bodyguard.
And she didn't feel like she was enough. And there's no other person on this planet who could have done that role other than Whitney Houston. And Kevin Costner knew that, and he wanted her. But how could Whitney Houston think that she wasn't enough? And it's like, so wow. So we all are, or we're all enough.
Yeah. We all have like confidence issues on certain things, about certain things, definitely.
And don't let that halt you or stop you from being your best, because you are enough. And you are enough, and do your homework. And then, of course, obviously, for younger people coming, do your homework, work hard, do your best, don't cut corners. Even if you're a filmmaker, don't cut corners, because you're only as good as the weakest part in your film, in your writing, whatever you do. And I'm not a writer or whatever, but I've seen enough films where I've seen people, make, you see a film, and if there's a weak link, your mind just goes there and it bothers. Like I'm excessive compulsive. I hate to say it, but I am.
I
And so I
understand.
can use it to my favor, but it can also be a detriment where if something really bothers me about something, it can really bother me. So if someone's working, if you're a filmmaker, you got to make sure all the links are good, because you're only as good as your weakest link, because that could be enough to turn somebody off of your project.
Right. Is there any other shout outs you'd like to give today before we wrap it up?
Let's see. Well, my father, but he's my father in heaven. I know he's in heaven. My father and my mother, who's around still. But my parents, I was blessed to have great parents. My grandfather and I would say shout out to all the songwriters that give us that teach us things through their songs. I was thinking about that. I run every day. I was like, I'm going to shout out somebody, but I want to shout out all of the amazing songwriters, the artists that give us these songs, like Jason Mraz, Paul McCartney, that give us these songs. Jason Mraz has a song about that he gives to his kids, that you can have it all. And it's like, I love that song. You can have it all. And then he's got another song about love is the answer. And it's another great song. And then Let It Be by the Beatles, another amazing song for people. All these amazing songs that just transform our thinking. So my shout out is to all these singers and songwriters that give us mind shifts, that help give us a paradigm shift and make us see things differently and better. And then one last thing was a Paul McCartney who sang, I'm gonna be in the movies, and all I gotta do is act naturally. So I mean, that's one of the best songs there is. So if you don't know about it, listen to the Beatles. I'm gonna be a big star, and all I gotta do is act naturally by the Beatles.
Awesome. And how do we find you? How do we find you online? Where do we go? Your social media, your website?
I would say the best place to find me would be on Instagram.
Okay.
You just type in Joe Finfera on Instagram. It's really under Joseph, but one of my relatives, and there's not many Joseph Finferas, but one of my relatives in Ohio somewhere took Joe Finfera. How dare they? I want to contact them and take it, but anyway,
they're like, listen, I really need this name. Can you just do me this favor?
Right. Mr. Wilson, please. So, but I
want some money for it, who knows?
Right. Well, you can still type in Joe Finfera and Joseph Finfera will pop up. And so I would say Instagram's the best way. And then obviously IMDb to see what I'm doing all the time, what I'm working on. Right. But a shout out to, I have a Ion Christmas movie coming out. I'm in it with Tom Arnold's in it, and that'll be on the Ion network, and it's called Prince and the Pauper. And that will be on Ion, the Ion network. If you haven't heard of it, it's on the Spectrum platform. So it's there. If you go and look at all your channels, you'll see Ion. So I'll be on, I'm playing Dimitri, and I'm this art dealer. I'm a kind of a criminal, and but I play a supporting role, and Tom Arnold's in there. And so
I just watched him perform at a comedy place the other day.
Great. Yeah. So that will be on the Ion network, December 4th. Look it up. And then I do have I have 2 Christmas movies coming out, one on Ion and then one on Lifetime. I'm not sure when the Lifetime Christmas movie's coming out. So that'll be coming out. So look for those shows. And I always post stuff on Instagram because you have to shout things out when you're an actor nowadays. Everybody knows.
Exactly. You have to definitely be your own PR.
And TikTok too. I try to do TikTok stuff to be funny. And my kids hate that. But I'll try to do stuff on TikTok just to be relevant. Because here's the thing, real quick. I have Facebook, which I'm maxed out kind of on Facebook, and then Facebook, I have a lot of friends I grew up with. So it's like if you're doing something stupid, it's like they can call you out on it. So it's like to make you feel bad. So then I wake up thinking, oh my God, I shouldn't have let my my friends see that. So then, and then Instagram, it's kind of more business, but
Yeah, I mean, each platform has its own way of,
yeah,
so you have
TikTok,
to
I can
be
be goofy.
appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, TikTok, I can be goofy. And
Yes.
because a lot of characters I play are really hardcore and I'm going to get you kind of thing and blah, blah, blah. But really, I'm very goofy. I'm very serious, but I'm very goofy too. And so, and if you watch the roles I play, you would never think, oh my God, if you didn't know me, you would think, oh, this guy's really serious. But I'm really a goofball, but I do take
Right.
things serious. I'm a serious goofball. But TikTok allows me a chance to do that in a platform.
Right. Yeah. I mean, TikTok's totally different than Instagram. So yes.
Right.
And with the Netflix with Griselda, when will we be able to watch that?
That's a good question. I honestly, I scour whenever I work on projects. I literally check almost every day. What have I done? When's it coming out? I look and see what's going on. And I sometimes I put my name in the browser and put news. That's how I found out when the Ion show was going to air. Because literally I changed, like every day, just put your name in news and you can see it. So I'll find out the very moment it comes out because I'm always looking all the time. So, but what they say is, I mean, right now it's November. So I'm thinking but I do know what I did here is when Netflix is ready to go, they go fast. And my mother, I remember when the Joneses was coming out, they didn't start Vivica Fox didn't start going on TV shows to promote it until like 2 days before the show aired. So I think once it comes out, I think it could be pretty quick, but it could be the end of this year, but it's definitely going to be the beginning. Either if it doesn't happen the end of this year, it'll be the beginning of next year. It'll be in January of 2023. That's what they've been saying. So it still could be the end of this year, but as we're getting further down, I doubt it because they didn't do the movie poster yet. As soon as that movie poster shows, then you know it's like coming fast because a lot of times you'll do a show and it's just they have everything in there, and then as soon as that movie poster comes out, then it's gonna go.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay, and with that, that's the show for today. I want to thank you, Joe, so much for being here. It was so great to have you and you gave a lot of good tips and advice for actors and people wanting to come to LA to pursue a career. So thank you. And I'm sure I'll see you at an event sometime soon.
Right. I run into events now. It's great.
Right. Yes. We always like, hey. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And I'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thanks, everyone. Join me next Wednesday at 4 on Streaminn HUBB Radio. Thank you. Bye. Shout out with Sage.